Episode 28. I'm back. Welcome to the Interstice podcast, wherever you are tuning in from, whether that's on the channel, Spotify, iTunes, and all the other places you can find it. Really appreciate you guys doing so. It's been inconsistent where I've been able to do this recently. For example, I was doing it on the floor because I didn't have my laptop. It was at school. I was doing it in Kyoto, but we didn't have the mic set up. So actually just to have a mic in front of me is really, really satisfying. And there's a lot of life that's gone on where I really enjoy doing these podcasts with other people. Having guests is awesome, but when I get this spare moment in a crazy day that I can actually sit down and I've written out my reflections, it's cool. It is its own unique thing, and I really like that. So I'll jump in with the couple of things I'm usually thinking about. Whatever it is that I'm consuming, that can turn into a whole nother topic, and has on the podcast before. But the things that we're consuming obviously inform how we're making our decisions, what we find interesting, how our general mood might be. And I've been getting exposure to some really, really cool stuff recently. Two documentaries actually. Now, the first one, which was, I think, very, very, very popular on Netflix, was the Michael Jordan documentary about his life. It was called The Last Dance. I don't even think I'm done it yet. And it's brilliantly composed, and whoever made that documentary is incredible. And I mean, just to have the footage that they had access to where they recorded that team for so long is really, really amazing. It's so cool. And I took some lessons from it, things that are inspirational in my own life. And it's cool because I think there's a characteristic of wisdom and experience is that good lessons are, when they come to character and humans and relationships, how universally applicable they are to our lives. That is to say that I'm watching this documentary about basketball, one of the greatest players who ever lived, but at its core, this is about a team, not just one guy. He needs the team. He needs the audience. All of these are, at their best, they're symbiotic relationships. And so it had me thinking about what does team mean for me and how that's evolved over the years and my relationship with that. And of course, I have that traditionally rooted in something like the rowing that I used to do when I was in high school, or the rugby that I played for 6 years, which gained me a scholarship to go to the high school I went to, which very likely is responsible for me going to the university that I went to. Who knows what would have happened otherwise? We can't tell. And that is the most traditional way that I might think about it. But really, I think about it now in the way that I'm surrounded around the world by all these people that I've grown up with, and I don't know exactly what it is. Obviously, I put value in people who are moral, people who are working hard, but that people who have done a lot of really exceptional, incredible things, like to list a few. I mean, the one that you'd probably be most immediately familiar with is Drew. So Drew is working on his developments in Kyoto. He's got his business. It's taken him years to develop that. For me to be able to document and be alongside that is incredible. Then you have somebody like my friend Russ. Russ works out of Vancouver Island, responsible for, he's the GM, but also the owner of a Boston Pizza there, and it was failing before he arrived. And then he got in there, reinvested in the company, really turned over their finances. That was what his background was in, was accounting. But that is kind of like the thing, that is the, what would you call it? I don't know. I'm trying to make a pairing here. It's his so-and-so to his so-and-so, but I don't know that expression well enough to use it here. But it's paired so well with his people skills. He's an incredible leader. And whenever I've gone in there and I visit him during the summer, I can tell there's a certain atmosphere of the staff in that building that is reflective of how he is as a person. And that's the kind of person who cares about people and cares about his staff and works his ass off to do an incredible job there, and has enjoyed success thereof, has really turned it around, very successful business. Then you get somebody like my buddy Dev. Dev is, if I could, he's actually been in videos. He's been in videos once when I first got this camera that I'm recording on now. He was in one of my quick little cinematic shorts that I had composed. And although it was summertime, so he wasn't wearing his shirt. And of course, that's the thing people focused on. They were like, your buddy's not wearing his shirt in the video. I was like, thank you, internet. Thank you for your valuable correspondence. But it was a cool little video. I used like this great song in it. Anyways, he's an audio engineer. He's always been like really musically minded, very, very talented across a number of different instruments. And that then evolved into, he did audio engineering and then landed this job where he's doing Foley for movies. And it started with, I think it was called, I was going to say B-Rate. The first movie he worked on was like Toxin B or just Toxin. And it was about, you could just tell, I was like, well, this is beyond straight to DVD. This is like straight to the CD burner of whatever production values that you had to create this movie. And he was more than happy to start there. And he got in with a studio, and he's done so incredibly well that now he's working on like one of his most recent projects, which I think there's no like non-disclosure agreement about this or anything. It's called Invincible. It'll be coming out. They did 8 episodes. It might just be an 8-episode season. And it's this new, how the West is embracing more mature subject matter for animations. For example, you have something like Castlevania that was really, really popular on Netflix. I think this is the second wave that the West is really waking up to, this appetite that people in the West have for more mature themes found in animation. And he's a part of this project. As I say, it's called Invincible. The name dropping that you could do for the cast of characters is absolutely nuts. It's crazy. Like, just look it up and you'll see. I won't do all the name dropping now, but incredible. And each one of these guys is a massive inspiration to me, and many more friends. Like, I got this guy, Tom. It's crazy. When I go through this list, I'm like, what have I done with my life? that my friends are all like this, and I am what I am. Tom is this, he's a mechanical engineer who basically engineers buildings' energy systems to make them greener and to save the world. That's an incredible thing he does. My other buddy, Tom and this other guy, Bo, they were my roommates at the boarding school where I was like a day student. The other guy, Bo, he was living in California until fairly recently, but he can work remotely because a lot of smart people can. And Bo works on the housings for Google AI products. I was like, that's incredible. And that's to say nothing of, I got the list will go on and on. But I don't want to leave friends out. I mean, I've got these 2 brothers who are in this incredible family business. I know these 2 twin brothers who, one of them is this incredible like marketing success. The other one is this mining engineer. I can't believe it, really. But it's shown me how you can always have a team. I've taken approximately 9 minutes to get here, but these teams don't fade from us. And where I was watching and enjoying just how much this team mattered and shaped Michael Jordan's life, how if we surround ourselves by a good team, how that lifts us up and how much more fulfilling life is, what armor it is against the difficult times that we will inevitably experience in our life, and how, for anyone who's listening now, I would think about that. I would consider that team in your life and the way that these people are impacting you. And I'm a case study for the fact that these kind of people don't need to be in your immediate proximity, because none of these friends do I get to see anymore. And yet I feel like my bond with them is stronger than ever. It's usually in the summer when the world's not gone to hell in a handbasket that I'm able to. So I've had to postpone that, but it'll be that much more exciting when I do see them. So I'm incredibly grateful, and it gave me this eye to appreciate just how much these teams carry on with us. And if not necessarily, are you in a sports team, this still matters, this kind of idea that There are these people, each a part, a social node in the whole network of your existence that matter to each other. The individual is incredibly important, but we are all supporting each other in this way. And sometimes it's more invisible than it is visible because you're kind of going your separate ways for long periods of time. I mean, Dev and I don't really get a chance to talk a lot because of the time difference is a huge one. But then just generally because we're busy, guys got a busy life. I'm finished, like today was mercifully early to get off my work, and I got out of there at like, 5:45, something like that, start at 8. So it's tough, but it matters, and it matters more and more and more. And it's more than just a social support that you have for each other. It's the way that it helps with your ambition as well, that you had the greatest teammate ever in Scottie Pippen who could like link everybody else together. You have Michael Jordan, the leader. You've got, the great rebounder in, I'm going to forget his name now. That's crazy hair. Maybe it'll come to me later. Somebody will be in the comments or whatever. Like it was so-and-so. I feel bad that I've forgotten his name. He was in movies with, Van Damme. He ended up in a movie with Van Damme. But all the important members of the team that add up to something greater than themselves, and how ultimately the reflection I had was that this needn't go away when you no longer belong to a sports team. It's your life team. That's what I was thinking of it. It's the people in your life, and the people in your life that are close to you that you love comprise your life team. And you should work on them, and you should support them, and you should recognize the strengths that each of these people have to contribute to the team overall. That was one idea. So I was enjoying the hell out of that documentary. It was really, really, really cool. And then I nearly finished this evening. It's very, very new. Likely some people who are listening to this now, you probably checked it out too if you were curious about social media. And it's this documentary called The Social Dilemma. And it's great, very relevant, very, at the moment where this could be something that has importance to be discussed. And it's one of these documentaries, like I've seen in the past, that's talking about the sort of like what's going on in the background of social media. And it's been a hot topic here on the podcast. Actually, I talk about how you need to be aware of what it is that you click on in any sort of algorithm, because what it's doing is amorally feeding you whatever it thinks will keep you engaged with that stream of information. And so, wow, that's incredible. If you're an artist and the thing that you click on is how to draw, because now it's going to infer from that you will continue to be engaged if it gives you more drawing stuff. But if you had a bad day and you click on something really negative, it infers that you were going to stay more engaged if you now click on more negative things. It's really easy to, I wouldn't quite call it self-programming, because the algorithm is then feeding you what you had at first desired, but self-programming becomes kind of like you are externally programmed by these algorithms. So that stuff I'm fairly familiar with. So that I was like, I know about that. I know about any sort of like infinite scrolling feature is designed specifically for its addictive novelty, that you are eternally able to see something new. Those weren't the like really, really interesting things that I kind of tuned into and that my brain pieced together when I was listening. What most interested me, and I wanted to share with you as an interesting reflection, was when they didn't even explicitly discuss what I'm going to talk about, but they just hinted at elements, as I say, that my brain then connected. And that was the relationship between marketers and consumers, or marketers and purchasers. People are going to buy stuff. And it caused me to reflect on how different our world of consumption is. It's gone through a couple pendulum swings, we'll say, in terms of what we think of consumers, who has money to consume, and who is advertising and how they're advertising. Advertising is always evolving. You have like a sort of classic Mad Men advertisements, which is this, it's exploitative in the fact that it's taking advantage of, like you've seen, like what Don Draper, the sort of things that we're nostalgic about or that we like. But here's where I'll start, and then we'll build up. So advertising before yes, there were advertising firms, but it was usually that was the middleman, and that middleman you're hoping has some sort of predictive, anticipatory ability in terms of what your customers want. And so you've got company, say they're selling cigarettes, and they're selling, what is it? They're toasted. That's the like Lucky Strike. They're toasted cigarettes. That's what the marketing company comes up with, and then they sell to the consumer, to the person looking for the product. So that was the original setup, and there was also the original setup that was the state of the consumer, and that was that the 1950s, probably one of the first times that you're getting like a larger and larger middle class that would even have people that you would consider consumers. Because prior to consumers, people didn't just consume, they bought necessities. You had customers. Customers were buying things that were filling needs. We don't buy what we want now, we buy what we need. And in the 1950s, it was still like people had become consumers at that point, but they were still consuming things. They were still buying what they wanted, which was usually fulfilling something that they needed at the same time, but far more luxuriously than they had before, the modern nuclear family and all that. But what's changed now is that in most developed countries, much as we might complain, that most people, doesn't matter who you are, even if people who say that they're living paycheck to paycheck, a lot of these people still living paycheck to paycheck have enough in excess funds to still be purchasing like a consumer. That is to say that all their base needs are met, much as it's paycheck to paycheck, but they're still, for better or for worse, some people are putting themselves into horrible credit card debt for this, but they're still purchasing things that they don't need. They're purchasing things that they want. And so there's something very different at the end of purchasing there, where customers are not allocating an excess of funds that they have saved for and will buy something. It's that they always have this extra float of money, and they're looking for things beyond the necessities to entertain themselves, to fill that hole. that kind of cliched idea about consumerism. A lot of it ends up being really beautiful when people are artistic or people have a passion. And it's not a whole, that's why I don't get totally what do you want to call it? Like anti-consumption, because you can consume vegetables, you can consume things that are good for you. And so I think that people, when they consume products, it's not always vapid. But as a base level of this significant change that I'm talking about, people having excess funds, which allows them to consume. And so that then changes a relationship with the person who's going to provide your goods, because what it might be before is that we're going to sell to you exactly the best thing that we possibly can, because we know how discerning you are with what it is that you can set aside money for. So I have to sell you the best product that I possibly can, because people just don't have the funds to be more careless or more, you may describe it as, I want to say habitual, like a hobby, as opposed to habitual. It's a habitual thing that they're doing. So that's a different thing. And even evolving from that is now, this is the big bombshell, is that it's no longer a marketing firm that takes care of how you're going to get your product sold. That may be a layer that is still there. That's evolved, and that's fed to us through things like just being on the internet and a web browser. But this is the thing, it seems to be all changed now, all totally changed in the sense, even as I say that, I'm like, no, it is truly uprooted. Who is advertising? Who are the companies going to? And how it is that they're choosing to promote the product. So before, it maybe had some sort of romance associated with it. It was at whatever cost, creating the impression of it is the best thing that you could possibly get, or the best for the job that you need fulfilled. Whereas now, advertising is managed by tech companies that build predictive models off of the data that they gather from your media consumption through apps. And so then a company is not trying to say to you, this is the best product. It's saying to that company, which has a predictive model on you, where is the consumer that best matches with what I have? So you're not trying to necessarily make the best thing, although you may still, but you're concerned to get it, how you're getting it into the hands is different. You're getting it into the hands of people by saying, who is addicted to cameras? Advertise to them because they have a far, far, far higher likelihood to want to buy the camera. Who is addicted to shoes? I don't want to sell the best shoe. I need to find the person who's most likely to buy the shoe. And I don't need to make it too dystopic, like I said. They don't have to make the best shoe. They may still try to, but it is everything are these predictive models that gather information that can, as I say, make predictions of our behavior based on our browsing habits, based on our media habits, and then match that with consumer. Match that with the company. And that is so wildly different. And I like stepping back and taking note of this because it's so easy in our day-to-day lives that change seems so gradual that you don't notice that the world is entirely upended, that it is a completely different thing from the 3 years ago. There are things that remain constant and lend to this impression that it is not changing at this rate, but that would be completely diluted to not realize that even from 5 years ago, our world is so, so, so different and matches with this idea of exponential technological change that is continued to run amok, to say it in a negative way again. I want to coach all this language that I'm using here. I'm saying that really does have it has a negative connotation to it where you're like, what? I'm not being sold the best product anymore. I'm being only matched with like predictive algorithms that know what to sell to me. There's that. It's true. But I think that it can actually be a really, really, really incredible thing if we're aware of what's going on. Because as I said before, I don't think that this means that now they can abdicate any sort of competitive drive where they make the best thing, because there is an addition to being matched with predictive models, like who is it that's going to watch your stuff and consume it. It's also that other companies are trying to do the same thing. If there were one company, well, that's really worrying. But the fact that competition exists between the companies, then even if it's built on these, like, they're going to know who are going to buy their stuff now. If they're selling shoes, it's the guy who's addicted to shoes. They still have to compete to make the coolest shoe for that guy addicted to shoes. And if we remove this blind spot from ourselves, if we're aware that, okay, this is how that people are appealing to us now is based on understanding who we are, and also that that's the way that I'm receiving my ads, then we can be conscientious about it. We don't need to succumb to it. We can still be individually responsible and not offload that responsibility to somebody else, which I think would be a mistake. I want regulation. I want people to say, like, you shouldn't have predatory, I don't want predatory businesses existing and predatory practices like loot boxes and video games and stuff like that. There needs to be layers of accountability, but I do like individual responsibility. I think that we should be smart enough to just have a discussion like this and then be aware of when we're being manipulated to buy things or become interested in something, and we make a choice about that. And instead of being manipulated, we kind of turn the system around and we say, well, this system will bring me what it is that I truly want, so long as I know that's what's happening. It's this situation where you need to be much, much more accountable for the way in which you purchase, because your purchases are so tuned into you now. And to acknowledge how this exists at every level, right? Here's an example. When people watch my videos on YouTube, I'm benefiting by the same way that those companies are benefiting. That if somebody wants a really long-winded, probably uninteresting discussion of random things that a dude has going on in his life, I'm going to be matched to a person who enjoys that kind of content, and I will grow like wildfire. But if people aren't interested in that, they're not going to be fed that. But my point being, that people are being matched with my content in the same way that these predictive models are working for shoe companies, which I acknowledge that. And it's appeal to like myself and to everybody to just see how the landscape has changed and how important that is, and how the money that is in our hands has changed. And even as much as we might say that we're living paycheck to paycheck, but that's like paycheck to paycheck buying tons of things. So much of what's costing us and making it that we don't have any savings is that we've gone to the next paycheck buying something cool and fancy that we want to use. I'm not going to make this super long because I got to sleep at some point. I want to read as well, but we're going to go into the second half of the podcast now, and it's going to become a little more Japan centric. And we are going to look at the emails that have piled up for far, far too long since I've been away from having this set up where I got the computer going. But let's get into those. I'm proud of myself that I actually am wearing a normal, like my favorite podcast shirt. I got home from work and I was like, I'll just wear what I wore to work. I'm not going to change it all. But no, gotta keep it together. All right, so let's jump in. Usually I would vet some of these first. I'd have some idea of what it is that I'm going to read, but we're going to have a little fun here based purely on how random it is that I have not confirmed the length or anything. All right. Jumping in here, this one is not actually too long. Let's see if they say where they're from, because okay. She actually wrote, you can read out loud from here for privacy reasons. All right, that's cool. And this is cool. I really like, she provided, won't say the name or anything, but where they're from Syria. How cool is that? You're watching my stuff in Syria? You're listening to it? That's crazy. I'm not sure how much you've heard about living here is no game. And traveling abroad isn't simple like other nationalities, yet I waited to get a chance to work and live specifically in Japan. Cool. I got my chance after so many failed tries. Good for you for not giving up. It's hard sometimes. But now I'm waiting for the borders to reopen and for the evil that shall not be named to decrease in my country so that I would no longer be banned from coming to Japan. Question 1. Should I worry too much about racism? I know it is not much of a thing in Japan, but I won't be in Tokyo, so I'm a bit concerned. It's an important question. It's a fascinating question. There are absolutely prejudices in Japan. This is, it would be silly to think otherwise because, it's in Japan? A bunch of humans. You know what humans are? Racist. It's a human condition that there will be people like this. My buddy Dean, he and his girlfriend, when they've been out, they've been, subject to it a couple times. Like this, what's this girl doing with a white guy? Some of that old-fashioned hate. But my experience has been that while that is still here, that my immediate experience of people in Japan, and I feel like most people in the world, if they've had any kind of exposure, if they're open-minded, they're wonderful. And the good far outweighs the bad. I know that these experiences exist, and I know people that have had them happen, but predominantly, I would say the heart of Japan and the people here is a really beautiful one. And they're human. They fall prey to the same insecurities and madnesses that we all do, but they are in no way given over to it. And so you could expect to come to Japan and that you would be greeted well and make great friends lifelong. I've met so many utterly selfless Japanese people now at this point that, they've won me over. If I met somebody who was horribly racist, I've been too much won at this point. Maybe that's my bias, is that I've met enough utterly selfless, kind, genuine Japanese people who've gone out of their way time and time again. My previous Japanese teacher said to me, she was like, I think of you like my son. It's difficult for me to even talk about that to this day. It's not that long ago, but that she extended, the kindness and effort that she did to me while I was studying under her was incredible. It's just amazing. Like I take a bullet for the Japanese people, for the ones that have been so kind to me. Now, an interesting kind of like cap on this question that you have here is to refer to, I won't be in Tokyo, so I'm a bit concerned. The thing is, I mean, maybe you'll proportionately see an increase when you move to the countryside of the sort of like country bumpkin, maybe ignorant-minded person who's never seen a foreigner and blah, blah, blah. But then you far more, again, I'm talking real talk here, you far more get the sort of people that, because they have room to breathe, because they have not much else but time on their hands and their food to share, that you get these great acts of countryside kindness. Now, is someone's experience? What is the Black experience in Japan? What is the brown experience in Japan? What is the experience of somebody who's Korean? They're all very different. And so for me to speak of everybody's experience now, there's more nuance than that. You're going to have somebody from Syria who's going to, because of the color of their skin, have a different experience than I had. But I've known people of color in Japan, and they've, to me, reported similar kinds of experiences. I had my one buddy who, Chopper, like the first roommate I have in Japan. I mean, he said it was annoying. He would like be with me, and people would let me into traffic more than him. So, but that seemed to be, as far as I could tell, the greatest act of racism against him. Oh, and also getting a place. I would say that was also a real act of racism when he tried to get a place. I'm pretty sure because of the color of his skin, where we were, just so happened that he did find people that made it difficult for him. But when he talked about his experiences at school and within the general community, aside from looking for this house, I mean, people cried when he returned to the UK because they missed him so much, and he'd forged such strong bonds with the school that he was employed at. Question 2. Are there any news about borders opening this year? Not the guy to know. I have no idea what's going to happen. I love everything related to creative work and creativity, and I always thought I'd start YouTube if I go to Japan, but I'm shy and lack confidence. And to look at my pictures or to hear my voice, is this normal? Do you have tips for me? Do the damn thing. That's all. Everybody's awkward. Everybody's a little bit nervous, and everybody with practice improves. And no matter the medium that you aspire to, you'll get better if you practice. I am fond of Jordan Peterson's phrase that the fool precedes the master. You got to suck before you can be good at whatever it is that you're going to do. So embrace that awkwardness. One of the things that I do, and it's almost a little bit weird for me now because I so feel it when I do something like this, is if ever you're speaking to the camera like this, like I am now, really do try and think about it as a person, and I find that helps you be more genuine. For me personally, one of the things that I hate the most is when I can tell if somebody's affecting a kind of YouTube persona. Certainly we all have some degree of persona, but when it's really thick and it's really fake and it's really high energy, I can't stand it. So beware of that. Beware of being disingenuous. And something that may help you be more genuine is to really think when you speak into the camera, really treat it with the respect you would as though you were speaking to someone directly. Last question. I would really appreciate any tips or heads up. Sorry, this is such a long email. It's not a long email at all. I'm sorry to have gotten to it so late, but I'll let you know that I read it and put it on here. Final tips. The universal tip I give to everybody. I can hear people who are listening to this, he's going to say this. Basically, whatever company you come with, you use them as a stepping stone. You can do far better within 6 months. If you aren't happy, have the personal responsibility to move on. The other thing I can't stand is when people have a problem in their life, and if they have that problem, do nothing about it. If all you do is complain about a problem, well, then you just got to deal with it because you're doing nothing to correct it. You forfeit your right to complain when you've done nothing, no effort to try and fix what it is that's bothering you. So there it is. I appreciate the email. I hope that helps. That was cool. That was a good one. All right, okay. This is me not vetting the emails here. Let's see. All right, I'm just going to jump to this place. Apologies, Pete, because this is so long. This is something I think some people may expect that I would read and then I'll write back. Perhaps I'll do that, but just to add some voice. So this is Pete, USA, teaching in South Korea. Okay. I signed a provisional contract with a garbage ALT dispatch company in Japan that would start around March, April. I'm using it as a way to get into Japan. Boom. Find a better position. What did I just say? And I would be looking to cut out of the contract. Also, it's knowing that the Japanese visa belongs to us and not the school. Yeah, your visa is your visa. Absolutely. What's your advice for someone who is with the garbage dispatch company and jumping out early, aside from obviously reading the contract about cancellation clauses towards a better teaching job as a newbie? How would we approach and justify that with the potential school? Oh, okay. So this is something I can offer as a reflection for people doing this, and I think it's funny from the position that I'm in now and that I see this. People think that like you're going to quit a company here and then the next company that's going to hire you is going to question the fact that you didn't commit through to a full year in that contract. They know with these other places that a lot of these other companies are shit and that they're not giving you a good deal. And they're also super competitive in that they want to scalp you away because they really need to hire someone. They are not concerned about how that other company's performing. They're concerned about how they're performing. Now, if you jumped ship like 6 times, then maybe they'd have a concern because they'd see their head on the chopping block and they wouldn't like that. But if you've come over and done what you were intending to do, which is just to find something better, they'd probably in the back of their heads be like, all right, well, I guess he's just a little bit smarter than the average bear. So I wouldn't worry. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about the impression that you would leave on this new company that you're applying to as someone who's flaky. That's not their concern at all. So yeah, like you said, watch for the cancellation clauses because you don't want them to have some sort of like, oh, what, you didn't know that if you leave 6 months early that you owe us 200,000 yen or something stupid like that. Watch for something like that. But then the other thing is don't get too inside your head and think that that the company that you're applying to is going to have a really negative opinion of what you've done. They won't. They don't care. They don't care at all. They need you. They need to hire you. Okay, let's do this. All right. This looks cool. Thanks for doing what you do. No worries. This is from Francis, 25 years old from the US, half Japanese. Do it to me every time. The redhead said to shred the cello, and I'm mellow. Just reading the email. A family in Japan from my mother who's Japanese. That's cool. I'm completing a bachelor's degree in psychology and philosophy. All right, man of the arts. My question is, are the mental health services in Japan adequate and similar to Western societies? Are they adequate in Western societies? Also, are mental health services a viable job option to be able to pursue after working as an English teacher? I understand in the US you're required to do grad school in order to be a therapist. I'm curious if it's the case in Japan, and even possible if you were a foreigner. So to be careful of commenting on something that I don't have experience with, I'll first give that disclaimer. Beyond that, I would say that I think if I had to hazard an educated guess that there are foreign companies that need health services performed within them, that perhaps this is something that you could become involved in. I will say that I think it is more than especially difficult as a foreigner to get into something that would be a Japan-centric health industry position. I think cracking into that as a foreigner, that would be super, super tough. I would love to see some comments on the video for anyone who has ever pulled that off before, because I think that would be exceedingly difficult in Japan. You've really found one here. There's like more and more that I can comment on in terms of the job market, but how would that go? I am not entirely sure. And you're going with this foot in the door, work as a teacher kind of thing previous. So yeah, I think it would be. I mean, one thing definitely, if I were to give a hint, something you obviously want to do, one of the first things is you're obviously going to have to live in a major city center because there's going to be no health professional jobs out in the countryside for you. Bound in just the number of jobs. In addition to, as I say, perhaps getting hired by a foreign company to do what it is that you're interested in, you definitely want to be in a city. That's probably the most sure thing that I can talk about in regards to this, because the rest of it is kind of conjecture at this point because I'm not a health professional. But that would be it. Live in a big city, get the lay of the land. I mean, if you only come over here as an English teacher for a year, you can be like kind of figuring that out, networking with people. Perhaps I would look for social groups that those kind of people run in, that you would be able to find a job like that, whether that's on a social network or somewhere else. I can't say exactly. Ultimately, I've always wanted to live in Japan because of the rich culture of my bloodline. Yep. It'd be amazing to create a life there and be a therapist in a country where mental health is known to be a real issue. Yeah, I wonder what the market will evolve into over time, because I do know that's a thing, like that mental health is, there's efforts more like, say, for example, at my job or the job I worked previous to the one I'm at now, there was like a stress check that was taken each year, and they're always doing a health checkup each year. But I feel like just like additional holidays have been given to people in the corporate world, nobody still uses them because of this kind of culture of silence behind like, don't be weak, you have to work forever, stave off that karoshi for like one more day, you don't want to die from overwork. Where it's the same thing, it's like there's acts made towards better mental health and appreciating it as something that really matters, but I think at this point it's kind of amounted mostly to the first wave, which is generally only lip service. I think it really does remain an issue. And if you could be at the forefront of that, that's awesome. Be a part of some critical moment in history. Do that. And you'll be all the better for it. So there's some reflections for you, Francis. Wish I had more there. Okay. All right. I'm a little scared opening this one. Okay, this was not so bad. This comes from Masa Salenia. I saw your videos on YouTube and I found them so hopeful to get there. I live in such a great country. I really want to know I can move there by my lovely boyfriend. I can teach them. I want to get my internet. I have some questions, if you please. I will continue to send you emails. Okay. Little bit long, you know what, but hey, this can be like reading. I was saying this can be like reading poetry. We can do, we can do a few long form emails. We just hope that they're interesting enough that they don't kill us with boredom. I had my battery die there, so yeah, we'll see how consistent I can make this in the post processing. We'll fix that in post. Okay, let me introduce myself. Okay, cool. They say, I hope you read this email and I hope you have time to respond. We'll do this fast. Let me first start by introducing myself. My name is Elias Awad. I'm a 25-year-old guy from the Netherlands. Awesome. Great people in the Netherlands. That's my, Netherlands? My background is Norwegian. I don't have any real ties there, but that's my blood. I want to visit Norway. Netherlands, cool. A few weeks ago, I came across your YouTube channel, and since then, I've watched some of your videos. I really like the way you talk about teaching, you give tours and stuff like that. I hope you read this and respond. Last year, I visited Japan, and I immediately fell in love with the culture and environment, and it was one of those epiphany moments in life where someone is suddenly 100% certain on what and where he wants to be. Ever since I'm back, I've been looking for ways to move to Japan. My main problem is I do not possess a bachelor's degree. Oh, no. If I try to find a teaching job in Gaijin Plant, yeah, they require that. I pretty much look around, but it's trouble. I finished my college 3 years ago in the Netherlands, which is called an MBO. It's a degree which comes close, but not quite. I'm currently at work as a social service provider helping kids. That's cool. Troublesome youth. That's tough. Last April, our government and the Japanese made arrangements so Dutch people can go on working holidays. Nice. I was really happy when I read about that because it opens up new options. But then I came to the conclusion that after 1 year, you were allowed to visit and work in Japan. You have to move back. So they say. Still, I would not give up on my goal, which I had obtained of visiting Japan. So I applied for university. Ooh, it will take me 4 years. You're going to do it. But I will also learn the language and study 6 months abroad in Japan. Super cool. But still, my mind dwells with some questions and uncertainty. Like, after I finish school, I will be close to 30. Oh, come on. Who cares? Our company is still interested in hiring a guy from abroad. I was 28 when I came. Who has just finished his study. Is this the smartest move? Are there faster options? There could be faster options, but my friend Elias, I would say that you are not behind. This is totally wow. Wow, is it in your head to think that you're behind the gun? You're behind the, is that even the right expression? That you're late to the party here. I came when I was 28. No problem. I was still at that point like very much, oh, you're young and your life is going in a million directions. So they said at that time. And yeah, 30, who cares? You come over. I got friends very, very successful here. They're just all about to turn 30. A lot of my friends actually about to turn 30. So that would be no problem at all. Do not be discouraged by your age. And a big shout out and respect to you for having such perseverance in search of your goals, because that's what it takes. You've got to keep going. You've got to keep going. It doesn't matter what it is, that thing that you want to do. It's simple math. If you haven't reached it yet, the only option is to keep trying. That's the only way we get there. That's how I go to sleep at night. You just keep working. And all the while, you're going to be happier because you're working on something that you really want to do. You haven't found yourself in this workaday job where the heart's gone out of you, the soul's gone out of you, and you're barely an automaton of life, and you don't care about what you're doing. Why live like that? I can't imagine how you live like that. I don't know how people don't just drop dead on the spot doing something that they are not invested in, that takes up the countless hours of their life. The countless hours of their life. I wonder how many hours. Nobody answered that. I don't want to know what kind of clock I'm on. But that's my thoughts. Don't be discouraged. Get out of your head. Come over. You're doing it the right way. Arguably, you could do it a little bit faster, and you could come over with what you have now and then get hired by some private school and get in and start your adventure that way. But the truth is, just straight up, the greater amount of opportunities that you'll have because you have the degree is so going to be worth it. And this thing that you see as a detriment, like, oh, am I starting early enough? That's totally in your head. You don't need to, I would not worry about that. Thanks for the email, Elias. That was really cool to read. I enjoyed that a lot. Oh, this is nice. Okay, we got another Drew, my good friend Drew, and then we got Drew here. This is really cool. Okay, so Drew is from Oxford in the UK. Thanks everyone for writing where you're from. I like that a lot. It's been a crazy night. We've gone to Syria, we've gone to the Netherlands, we got Oxford in the UK. This is cool. Big fan of the YouTube channel and the podcast. Listening to the musings has become a meditation on walks that I go for. That's really cool. I'm moving to Japan in February, March. Congratulations, my friend. You should be super excited, like you write. My question is this. You have spoken about moving upward from an ALT to a full-fledged teacher as soon as you can when getting in Japan, but is there much upward mobility in schools beyond that for foreigners? What I mean by this, are foreigners able to work towards being head year department or head teacher? The head of my department, oral communications at my school, is a foreigner, and he's from the Philippines. So in answer to your question, it is a big, bold yes, absolutely you can. Now, that's head of the department, oral communications at my school. Notice it's not English. We have such an emphasis on communication in the language department that they have two at my school. That's at a private school. That's where you're teaching there with English. But if you were to get something like a master's in linguistics or a master's in anything, then your eligibility to work in a different role and also in a head role with whatever field it is that you've specialized in is very, very high. I know people who taught science in their home country, and they came here and then they went to a school and they taught science. I know my friend Dan, who's another creator, less so these days creating things because he's created a life worth living, which is he's got beautiful daughters, he's got his lovely wife, and he works as like I'm not sure if it's the head of whatever department, but he works for some, I think it's one or two universities in Kyoto, and he's killing it and has had lots of upward mobility. But yeah, what I found is that you really need to work for these places that will allow for that. And you'll know if it's going to be real upward more mobility or just a few pay raises that you're going to get out of this place. So I can't guide you in that respect. You have to discern for yourself whichever company or school that you become a part of or job, does it have that? You got to assess when you're in there. But I could absolutely say that this mobility that you seek, my friend, it does exist. It absolutely exists. I could write many emails full of questions, but definitely this is the most burning. Great email, Drew. That was a lot of fun to answer, and I hope useful for you to hear my thoughts on. Okay. Okay, immediately winning me with Flesh Puddle. That's awesome. So this is Nick. He says, hope you've been keeping well, not melting into a flesh puddle in the hot summer. I have a quick question regarding Japanese resumes. After my contract with Interact is over, I plan on applying elsewhere. Is there a certain way I should type up the resume, or will the format for Western jobs be appropriate? Well, the answer to this question is, what's the job you're applying for? I mean, a lot of jobs you won't even need to have a Japanese resume, but you will, in some cases. Something that I would look for, I was actually contacted by some guy whose business is converting Western resumes into Japanese style. So these services even exist. So don't sweat it. Services exist to do this, and it will be entirely dependent on the place it is that you're looking, whether or not that'll even be necessary. And you offer here a beer. I appreciate beers. I think I had a subscriber once upon a time buy me a beer, and it was, that was the height of my fame. That was really cool. Okay. All right, cool. We're into the next one here. This comes from Scott from Australia. Wicked, very cool. Australia, boom, boom, boom. We're all over the planet today. If you're keen on having a discussion about wise people, yep, Alan Watts is cool. Henry David Thoreau. Every now I visit a couple. Basically, Scott here has reached out to say, hey, do you want to have a chat about interesting topics? Which is cool. Yeah. Absolutely, Scott. I'm always willing to chat with people. Sometimes against my will, people just ask me interesting questions on Instagram. I'm like, all right, I'll talk to you. You're interesting. This one I do not believe I've answered. Okay, nicely written. Has all the bullet points for the questions. That always helps as well. All right. So this comes from, we'll just say Gil. I think that's cool. Starting my first year of college. Memories. Wonderful college. I still feel like my life has kind of followed that path, that I have no wife, I have no kids. I do essentially whatever I want. I don't think it's Peter Pan syndrome, but I do have an element of like that excitement with my life that has never gone out of it, which I'm very happy about. I hope it's not Peter Pan syndrome. I'm building a dream. Let's see. Came across your channel, which has been very helpful. That's cool. Questions. My aim is to be in civil services exam and teaching in Japan. Plan A fails, so the plan will be to go to abroad, master's in humanities, Number one, you mentioned in the video that one of the biggest factors considered when hiring foreign teachers is the person has to be in Japan. So for my first year, I was coming over with a company like Jet. Would I be able to apply for positions in public schools? Is that limited to Japanese only? What? No, of course not. You can apply to Japanese national. No, of course. You would apply through a board of education. The board of education that I worked for, they'll post when they have jobs available. You can. If I apply to public schools, would it be a limited contract? It'd be limited. No, always limited. It's going to be a 1-year contract, except for the most exceptional circumstances. 3, is it true that schools prefer people from Western English-speaking countries? English is my native language, to be honest. It's what I've studied. Would a master's degree from an English-speaking country help? There's a sort of prejudicial preference given to like, you look like you speak English. So that can happen. But I think that's sort of like the power, that's as much power as that has, where it's like people make an assumption that is that. But then what you can actually do and what your resume says is what matters. So people are getting hired from all the countries in the world. And what might be prejudicial and annoying is that's all it is. It's just annoying that people might have that impression. That's 3 batteries dead that we're going to have cuts here. Yeah, I got some charging to do. Let's see. Can we get through this email? Is there any way to teach just one school? It could be if you end up going for like a private school or you get lucky with a board of education. Do public schools require a teaching certificate? Nope. Is a foreign teacher given similar roles or response? No, not in a public school. You won't have to do like homeroom duties or duties around the school. I do all that shit now because I'm in a private school, but that's because I'm in a private school. There's some question I have, but they'd not fit in a single email. No, they wouldn't, and it would kill us here, all listening, and we couldn't do that many questions. But thank you very much, Gil. I hope that does give you some peace, gives you some insight into what you were curious about, and that was a lot of fun. Let's get up here. Uh-oh. Make sure. Okay, there we go. Goes by the name of Savage Viking. All right, guys. So happy to be back. One thing that I found, when you make something, it makes you want to make more things. And that's why I always feel so good after doing one of these podcasts, even if I'm tired. Can't wait to do the next one. I'm going to become more proactive, where I used to only make them as I was able to, which was like when it comes out, I probably recorded it the day before, but I'm going to try and whenever I'm struck by something, get in here, get the podcast done so you guys can reliably and Pavlovianly have a more predictable release date for the podcasts, because I love getting your emails. I love the talk that we have here. I like getting more guests on, and as the production qualities continue to grow as well with cameras and mics and maybe air conditioning one day. It'll only become more and more fun, I hope, for people who tune in. So thank you very much. I've been listening to S-Tech, this review guy. He says, thanks very much to the Merchants Guild for supporting these videos. I'm going to steal that one from him in this one. Thanks very much, of course. I mean, to people who are supporting me on Patreon. It means the world to me. It's how I will be able to do this full time one day. It truly is. And people so caring about what it is that I do on the scale that I do it, that they believe in that and invest in me. Like I said, well, what can I say other than that it means the world to me? So thank you so much. If you're on the channel, please do like, subscribe, hit the bell to tune in whenever these immediately go live. But for now, the clock has run out. I'll catch you in the next one.